We'll now call to order the meeting of the Fall River Valley Healthcare District Board of Directors. Before we take roll call, I do want to make an announcement that Director Friel has requested an excused absence for today's meeting as she's traveling out of the country. I'd like to make a motion that Director Friel's absence be excused. Can I get a second to that motion? Second. I'll defer. Yes.
Okay. Director Cox? Yes. Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Patel?
Yes.
Attorney-
Yes. Okay, Rosie, whenever you have an opportunity, please take roll call.
Roll. Director Cox? Yes. Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Patel?
Here.
Attorney-
Here, we did not have a closed session today, so there's nothing to report out of closed session. I'll turn it over to staff if there's any agenda modifications for consideration for tonight's meeting. Okay, seeing none, I'll now open up the public comment for matters not on tonight's agenda. Rosie, any raised hands or any attendees online?
No attendees online.
Okay, anyone wish to speak on any items? Everyone blanketed, but no raised hands. I'll close down the public comments, and open up for any comments from the board members for today's. Okay. Close down the comments for board members, and I'll move on to the consent calendar. I believe that we have 3 items on today's consent calendar. Item number 1 is the minutes approval for our previous meeting in April 30th. Item number 2 is the Chief Financial Officer monthly financial performance update, which Julie gave and we received in the hospital corporation, Wattsville Community Hospital board meeting. And item number 3 is the consolidated audit report for year 2024, which we also received in the previous meeting for the hospital corporation. Any questions or comments before I open it up for public comment on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing no questions or comments, I'll open up to the public. Seeing no attendees online, no raised hands in person, I'll close down the public comment and bring it back to the board to entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's Austin Gallagher. I'll take the roll on this item. Director Cox?
Yes.
Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Patel?
Yes.
Attorney-
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4. It's our first discussion item of the night, and it is the Fall River Valley Healthcare District policies. It says the contact here is Steve. So whenever you're ready, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks so much. So as I previewed earlier in my leadership report, we are starting to build the district board policy and procedure manual. And so we have 2 policies in front of you today. They're both short 1-pagers. The first is the purpose of board policies policy. And the second is the adoption and amendment of policies. So really just kind of setting the foundation of our board policy manual to ensure that we understand what the purpose of these policies are and how to go about, adopting new ones, amending existing policies, and some guidance on how the board can have input into the consideration of future policies, which really is to just let me know either in one of these meetings or through an email what policies you'd like to sort of see us work on next or soon. And then the policy committee, which ostensibly is Rosie and me, will take that up as we are able to. We have a pretty extensive list of policies that we will start checking off as we move forward through the coming months. But if there's anything that you're wondering sort of where it is on the docket, or wondering if it's maybe missing from our list to target for future months, you can certainly always let us know.
Any questions for Steve or for Rosie before we open up to public comment on this item? I'll just say that in our one-on-ones, Steve and I, we've been talking about this for quite some time about not only developing policies and kind of the playbook of how the board would bring items forward to discuss as a board and as a representatives of the healthcare district, but also just what is the procedure for identifying, what those items might be and laying that out, I think, for all of us to understand, and also for future boards as well, too, to understand has been a goal of ours for this year. So just want to give some context to the rest of the board on that. And thanks Steve and Rosie and also Allison for their work on prioritizing this stuff. So seeing no questions or further comments, I'll open up to the public. I don't see any raise hands online. Anyone wishing to speak on this item in public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for any closing comments and an appropriate motion on item number 4.
I'll move to approve staff recommendation to create district policy.
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Cox, and for the total take roll on this item, Director Cox?
Yes.
Director Gallagher?
Yeah. Yes.
Director
Yes. Thank you. The item passes unanimously, and that brings us to our final item of the night. Item number 5 is the Pajaro Valley Healthcare District calendar year 2024 voluntary rate range program intergovernmental transfer agreement. How did I do, Julie? Good.
That's a mouthful.
Chair, are you leading this item?
Most of the time I have to remind myself what the B stands
You're
for.
right.
The BRRP program, I don't know what. So, yes, if you recall from my finance presentation where I was showing the fact that we were looking at intergovernmental transfer programs, that we've been working with a consultant who also works with us on our FOF payments and programs every year. And so they've helped us identify programs that we're eligible for. They've done a lot of the legwork in reaching out to figure out how we get in those programs, what's required, helping us kind of predict, how much in the program we can be, how much the other agencies are willing to accept us for. And in this first one called the Voluntary Rate Range Program, this is really, they worked with the Alliance as our managed Medi-Cal provider because the funds will flow through the managed Medi-Cal provider. So they have a portion of the decision-making criteria in how much we can be into the program for. But very similar to the co-ops, this is where we pay in and then the funds go from the state up to the feds. They get more money back, and so we get more in the end. Now, we've determined that this first year in, we can afford about $500,000, plus there's a 20% administration fee that we have to pay. So about $600,000, and that we would get 1.3 million back, rough numbers there. And this program requires us to sign an agreement, which is what I'm here for today, is to get authorization to sign this agreement, either myself or Steve, so that we can execute this program and be a part of it for, they call it the 2024 year. It actually, the first payment from us would go out at the end of 25 in November, and then we would see the payment back in about February timeframe. So that's really what this is all about, is authorizing us to execute this agreement and participate in this program.
Any questions for Julie? I do have a couple questions, Julie. The payment back coming from the federal government, I think you said February of next year, is that right?
Yeah.
How do we make an approximation? Is that it's going to be 1.3?
Our consulting
The consultant.
consultants, they know all the details of how these programs work, and they
And then that, the assessment fee, is that a one-time like assessment thing, or is that as we continue to pay into it, we also have to pay that fee every time that we?
It's my understanding that that fee would be, every time you make a payment, an administrative fee.
Okay. Okay, that's all the questions that I have. Any other questions for Jill? No? Okay, I'll open up for public comment on this item. Seeing no attendees online, any raised hands? Seeing no raised hands in person, I'll bring it back and entertain a motion from the board for this program, and I'll just save my comment for, want to make a comment after. Yeah. Motion.
I'll move staff's recommendation. I appreciate all the work to bring this forward.
I'll second.
Thank you. I'll take roll on this item. Director Cox?
Yes.
Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Cisco?
Yes.
Chair Unitas?
Yes. That, I don't want to hold people back too long. I know that was the final item of the night, but I just want to say, when we first started this district and the reason we set it up in the way that it is, was so that we could access these sort of programs. And this was one of the, I know we like to say three-legged stool or whatever it is, right? That's the analogy we keep going back to, but it was one of the many funding sources that we were believing that we were going to be able to access in order to make this hospital on this idea work. And so just thanks for your work getting this. And I know there's a lot of folks that have been working really hard to get us to this point. So thank you. Okay, with that, I'll conclude tonight's meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.